In this video, I'm going to show you how I assemble this pool table. I got a really good deal in our neighborhood, and this is a really nice table from Legacy Billiards. It's an 8-foot table, 3 slate, and if you are looking for a table, you should go with the Slate table. And though it's heavy and it takes a lot of work to transport it, but it's worth the effort. So in this video, you will see how I transported it and I assembled it. I didn't do the video to disassemble it, but if you look at how I assemble it, you should be able to do the reverse and disassemble it. This is how I transported the pool table here. So the base is in the minivan and it fit perfectly if you remove the second row of seats and fold down the third row. So this one takes almost 82 inches in depth, and it's barely, it did fit in barely on the width, which is around 42 inches. One of the first steps is to put the legs on. So the legs will stand like this and it will go into this hole right here. So what I've done is I have put the legs right in the area, and then you need another person to lift from both sides and just make it sit on these legs. One thing you will notice that these legs are solid wood, and that's what you get for if you pay more for a table. And this is a Slate table, but with the cheaper tables, these legs might not be solid wood. I will put the bolt in there, and it has a big washer and a nut in there. So the bolt will go into the hole in the leg. And I'm not going to tighten it yet, because if you want to move the table, this is the time to do it. Once you put the slabs on or the Slate on, it will be very heavy and very difficult to move. So in this case, I'm going to align the sides so that it is sitting properly, and you have some play in there. And in my case, there is a little edge that is sticking out, which is fine, and I'll make sure all of them are correct. Next, I'm going to tighten it with a 14 millimeter wrench. And if you will need a wrench, because nothing, your socket will not go in this bolt is too long. And I'm going to hand tighten it. It doesn't need to be tightened a lot, but at least it should be tight enough. So here I put the slates on the table, and the third piece is going to be here. These are heavy slates, and we used a dolly to carry it in. So the slates are in or on top of the table, and these were, the way I brought it is, these slates will fit in the back of a minivan, or in my case, I have an SUV, and this will go in with the seats down, and you can stack one on top of the other. In my case, these, for one of the slates, these glued pieces of wood came off, so I'm going to put back in, but the way you have to align it is you need to have these notches aligned with the holes, because that's where the rail will go on. And also there is this hole which should align with the one that is bolted in. So, and then this one goes in the bottom, in the middle. The table came with underneath backing with wood, and this is good when you are trying to staple the felt. If you don't have the backing, then you have to glue the felt, but in my case, I will staple it. The thing to note is it comes marked with, A and B. So there is markings for A to A, and then there is marking on this side also, so you know where it goes. And this one, the table is marked as B also. So if I put it together as A and B, this should align properly. And the other thing is I have to take this wax out. So I will use a putty knife and take the wax out so that I can try to align it as close as possible. So first thing, I have to set these slates in the right positions. And you can see that they have the markers. So when they set it up, and the markers actually align to the middle of these long boards over here, or the wood support in here. So I'm going to set the middle one. If I set the middle one correctly, the side ones should be able to align properly. So the way I do it is I'm going to measure how far it is going to stick out from the wood that the slate attaches to. So this looks like around 2 inches, exactly 2 inches. And on this one, I have to put this board in, or this piece of wood in, to get to the 2 inches. On the other side, it is a little bit more than 2 inches. You can see I'm getting to around 2 and an eighth of an inch. So I can probably push it a little bit towards that side so it will align properly. But so far it looks good. And then these pieces will go in here. So these have come detached and they will sit over here. I'm going to align the wood to the other side so it will align properly. So once I have the alignment correct, I will put this one and the other one just butting to the middle section. So once the slates are in position, I have to measure the level. The next part is to make sure that it is pretty much level. And it looks like this one needs a little bit of leveling, so tiny bit on this side. The center looks pretty okay. For a home table, since it's not a professional tournament or anything, so this looks to be pretty level too. And then I'm going to do it crosswise and see how this level is. So this looks like a little bit needs a little bit of height on this side, and same thing on this one. So those two legs on this side needs, and same with this one. So it looks like it's a little bit on the lower side on this one. So I have a few pieces of level blocks here, and these are the the pieces of wood I can use to put underneath the slate, and these can actually go underneath the feet, and I should be able to raise the whole table. Now, putting these is very difficult because now this weight of the table is pretty heavy, and so you have to be careful if you want to put anything or lift the table on this side. I'm going to attach this piece of wood which holds the slate, this portion, with the bolts right here, and this one is attached to the table from underneath. So these are the two bolts which I'm going to put these in and tighten it. Next, I'm making sure that these screws are going to be aligned, and if I need to drill some pilot holes. So what I have is a flashlight, and I'm holding the flashlight from the bottom and looking through if I can see the flashlight coming out. So this one, for example, is aligned correctly. If it's not aligned, I have to drill some pilot holes in there so that the screws go in. The same thing for this one, and these seem to be aligned as it was before, and I'm doing the same thing for the rest of these holes. And if they are not aligned, I have to get these holes pre-drilled. Otherwise I will have trouble getting these screws in. I'm going to put the screws in, and since it's aligned, that should secure the slate to the bottom of the table. And I'm going to do this for all the, so each slate has 4 screws that hold it, and I'm going to put those in. So a couple of lag bolts that broke off, and this is what happened. So I replaced it with number 14 2.5 inch wood screws. So these are pretty cheap, and you can get the same ones, but those are more expensive. Or even I will try to do a lag bolt here, and I can drive it using this socket, and that should go in. So a couple of ones, just make sure that your head will fit in there, and you can use either of them. I'm going to clean the slate, just a rag and water. I'm not going to put any soap, but you are welcome to. So you will see all the dirt from the slate. It probably has never been cleaned. So I'm going to do a couple of cleanings on this and let it dry. I'm going to check the level of these slabs, and they are pretty good, and you can feel it with your fingers. And then I'm going to run the ball and see if it jumps or anything on these. So this one has a little bit of jump here. And the next part is I have some beeswax. So I will melt some beeswax and fill these holes, little holes. And for that, I'm going to use a heat gun on the low setting. And you can use any kind of heating mechanism. You can use a torch. You can use maybe a hair dryer, might do it. And for the beeswax, I happen to have some beeswax. Actually, my wife did for some other things for our didgeridoo we have at home. But a regular wax will be fine as well. So what you want to do is just make sure that there is no, you need to fill this line here where the slates are meeting. The beeswax is much better than candle wax, so professionals prefer the beeswax, and also it is more malleable. So candle wax will crack and under pressure. So if you can get beeswax, that's the best way to do it. So I'm going to fill these gaps as just with the heat gun, and I'll put the links on the video description if you want to buy a heat gun, or you can try a hair dryer as well. I'll test the rolling the ball and just hear for any problems in the ball rolling. If you have a little hump, you will hear the ball drop. So once that is done, the next is to put the felt on. Felt, you have to figure out which is the top and which is the bottom, and that might be a little problem if you have a new cloth. Usually the smoother surface is going to be the top, and this is, if you feel it, it's going to be a little rough on the bottom. But usually if the cloth doesn't have a top and bottom specified, you should just feel it and see which one makes sense. So here I have the top, and I'm going to stretch this out, and I'm going to put the same felt I had when I bought it. So, and they have these holes in there, so it's easier for me to position these holes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to staple the first ends on this side and align these so that I have a better sense of how far it needs to stretch. I'm using a T50 staple, so that's pretty common to use. It's a 1x4 millimeter staple, and I'm going to use a hand stapler here from Craftsman. I'll put the link there, and what you want to do is position it so that it's on the wood and just push it in. So usually you want to staple about an inch apart, but I'll come back to this once I get to the rest of the felt. So these staples have a little bit of, you can see that these edges are a little, has a little notch in it. So they will hit the wood much better. You can use a regular staple as well, like which is not, has an arrow edge in the bottom. But these are going fine in the wood. Next, I'm going to staple the other end, and I'm going to pull it as far as I can. In my case, my holes are aligned, and so I want to pull it as much and stretch it as far as I can, and keep stapling on the other end. So this will lay out the fabric much better on the table. And then I'll do the pockets at the last end of it after I do the sides. So the sides need to be stretched, and then the pockets. So I have stapled the sides, and this looks good. I have all the way, the sides are all pretty much stapled. I will probably use a few more staples because these are not close enough. But for now, I'm going to work on the pockets. The first thing about the pockets are you have to have this piece of cloth first stapled to this back, so that when your pocket material comes, it's going to be easier to staple on this side. So in my case, since I'm using the same cloth that came with the table, so it's already cut in pieces. If you don't have it, if you're using a new cloth, you have to cut a little bit of the cloth away so that this doesn't wrinkle on this edge. So this is very important that it shouldn't wrinkle over here. So I'm going to pull this and staple it. First, I'm going to put some staples on this piece, and then pull this cloth and staple here. For this excess material on this side, I'm going to make it pretty tight and hold it while stapling it to this side. So just make sure that you're not stapling into the slate. You have to bring it down so that it staples over on the wood in the bottom. So with that stapled, the first corner, and one thing you should just check that there is no crease over here, and that will stop the ball. So I have stapled. I'll put one more staple over here so that it's pretty secure. And I'm going to avoid stapling anything over here. And I might staple one more here so that it doesn't come off. And that does this corner. I'm going to do the other corners as well, similar to that. With the felt all installed, I'm going to now put the side rail on. So the side rails actually have a a bolt that goes in here, and it will screw in the bolts. And this is much easier, and I'm going to do all the bolts in here. Just hand tighten it. Once I have the bolts, they will just drop into the holes right here. So this, now one side is in place. There are a little bit of side rails on these, so they will squeeze in to this one. So I have to lift this up and align these side rails into, so that they open. There you go. So this one will pretty much go in here. Same thing on this side, and you can see this corner is set. And then from the bottom, I will be able to bolt those. Underneath the table, the washer will go in here, and then once hand tightened, I can use a 14mm wrench to tighten it a little bit more. So now I have tightened all the side rails, and the last thing remaining are the pockets. The pockets usually should go with screws, and I have some screws which are pretty much, it has a flat head. But for these pockets, if the screws, or this might bite into the screws, the other option is to just use the staples. Though it is recommended to use screws, I need to have some washers so that these pockets don't tear. I also ended up getting this cheesiest shark, pool shark, as my cue holder. So I have a few cues, and then I bought one for my kids. This is a shorter 48-inch cue, and these are the 57, 58-inch cues that come in. And this pool shark is really cheesy, but pretty interesting. And already we got a lot of laughs on this. So I'll put a link to this one also if you're interested to have this pool shark. So the assembly is done. It's now ready for me to start playing. And if you think this video was helpful, click on the like button and also subscribe to my channel.